President Trump is brutalizing the Democrat governor of Maine, the woke top brass of the military, and the president of Ukraine, all of which is great news for the people of Maine, for our troops in the military, and oddly enough, even for the president of Ukraine. America's strategic realignment from weakness to, how shall I put it, FAFO is moving full steam ahead. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. A man accused of cannibalism and hacking someone to death with an axe has been granted conditional release. So much for law and order in America. We'll get to all of that in one moment, though. However, something more delicious than eating your victims, human beings and everything, would be delicious. Actually, the greatest potato chip ever invented, Vandy Crisps. Go to vandycrisps.com/discount/Knowles. Potato chips were not always just another snack food. Back in the 1850s, they were accidentally invented when Cornelius Vanderbilt complained that his potatoes were not thin enough, and the chef sent them back extra crispy. They became the hottest high-end finger food in America. And here's the thing. They were made with real beef tallow, not processed seed oils. That is why Vandy Crisps was created. It is the first real potato chip that you have probably ever tasted in your entire life, made the way that they were made 100 years ago. They have 3 simple ingredients: heirloom potatoes, grass-fed beef tallow, and sea salt. Not only is that much better tasting, that tallow is also packed with nutrients that are great for your brain, your skin, your hormones. They're 100% American-made. It is... I struggle to even call it a potato chip. It is so much better that it is categorically different than any chip you have ever eaten. They're just magnificent. And sweet little Elisa thinks so too. And they pass her health checks and they pass my taste check. vandycrisps.com/discount/Knowles. Get 20% off your order. I guarantee you it will be far and away, orders of magnitude more, the greatest potato chip you have ever eaten in your life. President Trump just hosted an event for the governors of the various states, and he got into a delicious exchange, almost as delicious as a Vandy Crisp potato chip, a truly just scrumptious little exchange with the Democrat governor of Maine, Janet Mills. It was over Maine's threat not to follow federal law when it comes to keeping men out of women's sports. Here's the exchange.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with the state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
Oh, just so good. So good. Trump just puts her on the spot at what's supposed to be a very nice, happy, diplomatic meeting with all the governors of both parties. He says, hey, I heard the governor of Maine's not going to follow federal law. Well, yes, we will follow federal law. Yeah, we are the federal law. So if you're not going to follow what we're telling you to do, you're in violation of federal law. I'll see you in court. Yeah, good. I can't wait. Oh, that's going to be a fun one. I can't wait to see you in court. That's great. And then I hope you enjoy your retirement because you're never getting elected again. This is beautiful. Really, really beautiful. In part, at a 30,000-foot civics view, this is how the government is supposed to work. You are supposed to have sometimes a little bit of disagreement between the states and the federal government. And in this case, the federal government is totally in the right. And so one hopes and expects that Trump will be able to just totally squash this Democrat governor of Maine. But the other reason it's really beautiful from a little more practical political level is The vast majority of Americans do not believe men should be competing in women's sports. They don't want men forcing themselves into girls' locker rooms. They don't want men giving girls concussions when they play volleyball with them or cracking their skulls when they're boxing with them. They know it's ridiculous and they feel it at a visceral level. So once again, Trump puts himself on the right side of an 80-20 issue. How many Americans are going to watch that exchange and say, I'm with the Democrat governor of Maine. Yeah, let those men just go in and brutalize little girls. How many? I'm being as generous as I can be. What's it going to be? 20% tops? It's probably going to be more like 10% or 5%. This is like when Trump came out, he said, we're going back to plastic straws. We're not going to have those stupid paper straws anymore. Baiting the Democrats to take the side of paper straws, which no one likes, including Democrats. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And he doesn't back away. He knows that he has got the momentum. He knows, this is really the significance of November. He's got the popular vote. Most people are with him. He says, hey, all right, hope everyone's having a good lunch. Hey, who can I pick on? Oh, yeah, governor of Maine. You think you're going to play games with me? I'm putting you on the spot right now with a national, frankly, international spotlight. And what's the best the Democrats can do? What is their pushback? The best response they can come up with to President Trump's initiative is to call him racist. I kid you not. This has been the reflexive Democrat move for 40, 50 years at this point. And they're trying that. It's got diminishing marginal returns. In fact, a big driver of the 2024 election was how much people hate political correctness, wokeness, DEI, the kind of embedded racial grievance in our politics. Trump wins on, we're going to get rid of DEI. He implements getting rid of DEI, this kind of radical leftism, identity politics in our government. And then Jim Clyburn, Democrat senator, race hustler par excellence, goes on CNN and he says, all of this anti-DEI stuff, the fact that President Trump just replaced the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff because that chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, CQ Brown, was a big proponent of DEI. He said, that's just evidence of Trump's racism. Frankly, it's the new N-word.
Because of his skin color, he has been declared DEI or woke.
Is that why you think the president has let him go, because he's black?
That's what I think.
As you know, there have been others who have been fired, including Defense Secretary Hegseth has fired other senior military leaders, Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Lisa Franchetti, Air Force Vice Chief of Staff General James Slife. What is your reaction to those who would say, hold on, there were others who were let go? Are you leaping to conclusions? What's your reaction?
I'm not leaping to anything. I'm going by that book that Hegseth wrote. What did he write in that book? Now, you know that these words that they're throwing around like woke, that's an acronym that they've come up with, and you know what it means. When they say DEI, we know what it means. As I heard somebody say earlier today, they are substituting these acronyms for the N-word.
It's the N-word. DEI or woke are acronyms. Was that the word he used? Did Jim Clyburn say acronyms? That's not a word. So now, previously, I thought that Clyburn was just a radical leftist. Now I'm not convinced he's even literate. I'm not sure that he even knows how to use the English language, which actually bodes well for him because it means he might not be malicious. He might just be completely ignorant. It's an acronym, But then later he uses the word acronym. He says, this DEI, it's an acronym. DEI is not an acronym. DEI is an initialism. There's a difference between an acronym and an initialism. I'm being a little pedantic here, and I digress. He says it's the new N-word. But you heard the question from CNN. Even CNN, the black lady on CNN says, hold on, you're saying this the N-word. You're saying this, the guy was fired because he's black, but Trump also fired an Italian lady and a white guy at the same time. So of the three people I'm showing on screen here, only one of them's black. Why would you say he's being fired just because he's black? And Clyburn doubles down and he starts making up words and he starts babbling like a child who never learn the English language. But the end result of it is the same. It's the same conclusion we've heard from the libs for 40, 50 years. If you oppose us in any way, we're going to smear you as racist. So, okay, before we get into how that's a stupid tactic, let's just take it on the merits, okay? Clyburn says that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, CQ Brown, was fired not because he is a leftist politically, not because he's woke, not because he engages in ugly racial identity politics. No, he's not leftist. He's not woke. It's just because he's black. Okay, is CQ Brown a big lib? Let's go to the tape.
I'm thinking about how full I am with emotion, not just for George Floyd, but the many African Americans that have suffered the same fate as George Floyd.
Memo, you said that you signed on to that there should be a reduction essentially of about 9% of the white officers. That's 5,400. We have 5,400, too many white officers.
These are the kinds of things that we are, as an Air Force, are looking, how do we engage with different diverse communities based on race and gender in particular.
This is actually pretty impressive because we've had a lot of leftists moved up into the top brass in recent years. It's one of the reasons morale in the military is so low. It's one of the reasons they have recruitment issues. It's one of the reasons why Pete Hegseth was put into that position, because at least he raises the morale a little bit, but it's just ugly, ugly stuff. Okay, and Trump was actually nice about the firing. Trump came in and he said, look, I want to thank the chairman of the Joint Chiefs for his years of service in the military. Thank you. And now we're going to rectify one of the problems of the Biden administration. Someone who was passed over for promotion is going to get this promotion. So he was actually diplomatic. He didn't come in and lay the hammer down on this guy, CQ Brown. But he is a leftist in the military. He's advancing a despicable woke ideology, politically correct ideology, whatever you want to call it. It's not good for military fitness. The American people rejected it overwhelmingly. The majority of voters rejected it in November. He's out. And Jim Clyburn and the Democrats can say, oh, it's because he's black. Oh, it's the N-word. Oh, you guys are racist. But it doesn't work when Trump gets an historic proportion of the black male vote, almost 50% of Hispanics. The racism thing, it's just played out. Now, the fact that that's all played out is really good for the health of our republic. When you want to think about your own health, you got to check out Lumen. Go to lumen.me/Knowles. I've discovered an incredible tool that gives me real-time insight into my metabolism through something as simple as my breath. It's called Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. All you need to do is breathe into it first thing in the morning, and it will tell you, Michael, your metabolism is a Mayflower cigar right now. No, it doesn't tell me that. It can separate out the Mayflower cigar smoke. It tells you what your metabolism is up to, whether you're burning fats or carbs. Based on your measurements, it creates a personalized nutrition plan just for you. You can breathe into it before and after workouts and meals so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. This is some amazing technology. It allows you to have basically a personal trainer and a nutritionist all in one, just right in your hand, for really simple, really clean. Take the next step to improving your health. Go to lumen.me/Knowles. Get 20% off your Lumen. LUMEN.me/Knowles for 20% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this show. Meanwhile, speaking of foreign affairs, President Trump has just announced a new deal for Ukraine. Because, the liberal establishment had been pushing Ukraine and endless military funding and keeping that country to be a meat grinder, to kill as many Russians as possible and sacrifice as many Ukrainians as possible. But there's really no end in sight to the conflict. And it was just going to go on and on and on and potentially boil over into a regional or even global war. Trump says, okay, I got a deal for Ukraine. You're going to pay us back for the money that we've given you, and you're going to pay us back with mineral rights in Ukraine. And that's actually going to be better, not only for the United States, but for Ukraine itself.
How close are you to striking a minerals deal?
I think we're pretty close, yeah. I think they want it, and they feel good about it, and it's a big deal. But they want it, and it keeps us in that country, and they're very happy about it. But we get our money back. This should have been signed long before we went in. This should have been signed by Biden, but Biden didn't know too much about what he was doing. The war should have never happened, number one. When it did happen, it could have been settled the first week or 2 weeks. After that, it got bad. It got really bad. But it should have never happened, and it should have been settled, and it could have been settled very easily at the beginning. Now it's tougher, but we'll get it settled.
So the libs are saying this is absolutely terrible. Trump is trying to secure this minerals deal and extract money out of Ukraine. Now, granted, we've given hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine here. So, asking for a little something back is, I don't think, immoral or out of the question. However, they're saying this is wrong because America we give aid to our friends. I guess Ukraine is our friend. And we support people and it's never self-interested. And hold on. What they don't seem to understand is incentives. I think it's a little bit overstated sometimes on the right, how important it is to have a businessman as president, because you also want a statesman as president. You also want a philosopher as president. You also want someone who gets the big picture historically and militarily and ethically. And so it's more than just business. But this would be an area where having a businessman as president is a real advantage. Because while the libs want us to continue writing a blank check to Ukraine ad infinitum with no goal in sight, with no real benefit to the United States in sight, Trump is saying, no, hold on. If you want us to keep backing Ukraine, you got to give us some skin in the game. You got to give us some potential upside here. We live in a democracy, so the people can turn against the war. We get sick of war very quickly, and the American people are sick of this war already. So if you want us to have any continued involvement in Ukraine and not just give it away to Russia's traditional sphere of influence, which it's been in for something like 1,000 years or more, then you got to give us some stake in it. That's what Trump is saying here. He's saying a mineral deal in Ukraine means, one, the United States is going to invest money in Ukraine, not just in sending you weapons. We're going to invest money in building out this industry, which is good for you. Then, because we're going to maybe be making a little bit of money on this, we're going to have a reason to stay in Ukraine. We're going to have a reason to stop Russia from going in and just taking over your country. It's almost certainly not going to pay for all the hundreds of billions of dollars that we've spent on the Ukraine war, which is also fine for Ukraine. Ukraine's definitely getting the better end of the bargain here, but you're giving the United States a little bit of a stake. You're aligning incentives in such a way that gives us any reason whatsoever to stick around. Now, Zelensky didn't get this right away because Zelensky is not a great leader. So Zelensky says he was going to reject this deal and blah, blah, blah. He's coming around on the deal. Okay. Ukraine should have been begging for a mineral deal like this. Okay. This is the best guarantee of support, of U.S. support, that country has ever had. And sometimes it takes a businessman. Now, speaking of death and destruction, a man accused of cannibalism and hacking someone to death with an axe has just been granted conditional release, coming to a neighborhood near you. This is an amazing, amazing story. I'm pulling it up here from NBC Boston. Connecticut man accused of all these hideous things has been granted release according to the Connecticut Psychiatry Security Review Board. Just a few lines from this article. He's currently at Connecticut Valley Hospital in Middletown. Smith is accused of hacking a man to death with an axe in Bridgeport and eating part of the victim's brain and an eyeball. The PSRB said Smith has demonstrated long-term stability, remained engaged in all recommended treatments, and consistently followed his care. The board granted Tyree Smith's release after a careful review of his clinical progress, officials said. This is third world stuff. This is third world stuff to let murderer cannibals out of prison willy-nilly. No concern for the victims or the victims' families. Just, it's okay. He's out now. And what's funny is the leftists who promote this stuff, who promote clemency, who campaign ardently against the death penalty, even in principle, who want to go soft on crime, and some of them want to abolish prisons. They accuse conservatives who want to be a little tougher on crime. They accuse us of being kind of third world, medieval, this old tribal system of punishment. Quite the opposite. In the third world, one of the defining features is that the law is not evenly applied. It's capricious, criminals run loose, injustice dominates. And that's what we're doing here. We have a few more steps in the middle. We have a few more lawyers. We have the ACLU. We have all these campaigns based on dubious philosophy and ideology, but it's the same thing. You can literally murder and eat somebody in America. And if you fit the right narrative, racially, ideologically, maybe geographically, you'll get off the hook. That's crazy, man. That's totally crazy. How do you get to that point? I understand how you get to it in the third world. They just don't have enough resources to lock up the criminals. We're lousy with resources, man. We have a superabundance of resources. We choose not to lock up the criminals. Even the murderer cannibals. How do we get there? I'll tell you exactly how we get there. This is the consequence of perverting our justice system to throw retribution out the window. What do we think of when we think of our justice system today? We say it's a corrections system. It exists to rehabilitate people. And yeah, there's a correctional or rehabilitative aspect to punishment. There's also a deterrent aspect to punishment, which we also ignore. You punish bad guys to deter other bad guys. But the primary purpose of the criminal justice system is to punish people for having done bad things. That is the primary purpose. The leftists say, oh, that's uncivilized. We don't want to just punish people. An eye for an eye will make the world blind. The primary purpose of the justice system has to be retribution. Because one, that is what is most closely connected to justice. Justice is giving to people what they deserve. When you do good, you get good. When you do bad, you get bad. But furthermore, everyone is in need of a little rehabilitation. Everyone's got problems. I got problems. I have temptations. I do bad things. Should I be thrown in prison? No, I haven't broken the law. No, should you be thrown in prison because, you want to reach for that fifth cupcake? No, you haven't broken a law. You go to prison for breaking the law, and you are punished for your crime. And hopefully you're rehabilitated there, and hopefully your presence there deters people. But you have to recognize that there are good things and bad things. And when you do bad things, you are punished for it simply for doing the bad thing. And if we are so morally confused in society. I mean, we're murdering babies. We're selling babies to the highest bidder. We're cracking open our border, allowing face-tattooed Satanists to flood our country with foreign criminals. I mean, we are real confused. But if we have now reached the point when we don't know, we can't discern the good or bad in murder and cannibalism, something about our justice system has really, really collapsed. Now I have a question for you. What happens when a Christian takes psychedelics? Joshua Zatkoff sat down with me to share his mind-altering experience, what he saw, how it changed his perspective on faith, reality, and the spiritual world. Check out this teaser from Michael and the Psychonaut.
When I started getting into DMT, where I was having encounters with light beings.
What did you think the light beings were?
With acid and mushrooms, you don't typically, at least I never had visuals. With the DMT, this was like full on, you're seeing a whole world just crack open in front of you.
What would they tell you?
These three beings come in my room, and another one came in and it was dragging my body. And they told me, if you don't stop doing heroin, this is you.
Watch the episode now on the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. To watch the uncensored ad-free version, subscribe and watch exclusively on DailyWire Plus. Speaking of the third world, Democrat Representative Jasmine Crockett, this is a member of Congress, Democrat. She went on the Breakfast Club show to explain how she is rooting for Canada and Mexico over the United States.
Really been the one to call it out. The fact that I'm rooting for Canada and I'm rooting for Mexico a lot is really wild. But they are really the ones that are speaking truth to power right now. They can see what it is, and they were like, we are not messing with this crazy regime from Mar-a-Lago, and basically calling them thugs. That's what it is. But I'm like, y'all knew who he was when y'all elected him. So don't act surprised.
Yeah, I'm just rooting. I'm rooting for Canada and Mexico now. And that's so wild, huh? That isn't wild. The left always roots against America. And I'm not just throwing bombs, and I'm not being a cheap partisan here. Show me the counterexample. To an actual leftist, identifies, says, I'm on the left, I'm an ideological leftist. You ask them, hey, what do you think about the founding of America? What are they going to tell you? The first thing they're going to tell you is this country was founded on stolen land. The evil white man, he took the land from the Indians. They call them Native Americans or something. And then this country was built on the backs of slaves. The injustice of slavery, which has been practiced everywhere in the world for all of history. It was actually practiced here probably less time than just about anywhere else in the entire world. But it was built on slavery, and then discrimination, and then sexism, and then homophobia, and then transphobia, and nothing ever good ever happened in this country. But for the poor, oppressed, marginalized people who sometimes were able to throw an axe and crack the hellish facade that covers America. That's what they'll tell you. They always root against America. Why is that? I don't even think we don't need to say any more about that. I think even many on the left would agree with that. But they'll say, no, we love America. We love what America could be. But that to say you love what America could be, or, the dream of what America might be someday, that is to say you don't like what America is now. You don't like what America was yesterday. You don't like what America's ever been. When Barack Obama says he wants to fundamentally transform America, that is another way of saying he hates America as it is and as it has been. And it represents a contempt for one's country. And as I've said it many times on the show, liberalism is just screw you, dad. It comes down to 3 words, screw you, dad. And this is related even etymologically, because this contempt for one's country is a contempt for the patria. That's the like patriotic. That's your country. It comes from the same root as pater, as father. They both come from the same thing, and they come from the same contempt. And so it's no surprise. I'm rooting against America. Oh, gee, you don't say, Democrat congressman. Wow, shocking. Now, speaking of not just women, but men too. There's a story I wanted to get to last week. I didn't have time, but I really want to get to it. This is very much in line with unsurprising news stories. Headline from the Washington Post. Men may be more romantic than women, experts say. The question, is it true that men are more romantic than women? And then you get like a billion words on yes. Yeah, you don't need an article in the Washington Post for that. You don't need studies and experts to tell you things that everyone just knows. How many love poems have been written by women? Ever? How many love ballads have been written by women? Like none ever. And I don't know, I guess maybe in our modern culture, because we're so poisoned by feminism and the sexual confusion, we think, no, it's kind of like the people who say, well, I think a woman could beat up a man. It just depends on if they meet the same standards. Or you think, no. Statistically, no woman in the world can beat up any man. I know that there are like 1 or 2 exceptions maybe, and that's what the libs are always going to point to. But statistically speaking, no woman can beat up any man. And I think the same is true here. Some women have a romantic sensibility. Maybe there's some exceptions. Some men do not at all. But yes, men are more romantic than women because they need to be. Women are the ones who are pursued. Men are the ones who do the pursuing. So men write the love poems. Men write the love ballads. Men, hold the boombox outside the girl's window at night, and begs for her love. Men send the flowers. Men get down on their knee. Yes, men are more romantic. They have to be. It's the same reason that men are funnier than women. Women don't need to be funny. Women are pursued. Men pursue. So men, we got to use everything we can get. And men aren't as like good looking as women. So we got to use every tool in our toolbox. Write the poem, tell the joke, and whatever, make the money. I don't know, whatever. Good grief. We're just, it's all of a piece with all of these big headlines based on scientific studies and all the experts to tell us things that our grandparents knew intuitively. We're pathetic. Well, actually, where's your source, though? Where's your source that men are more romantic? I don't know every poem ever written, I guess. Is that a good enough source? Now, speaking of men and women, there is an actor who I'd never heard of, but apparently he's an actor. But he thinks that he's a woman, and his name is Hunter James Schafer, and he's in some show. I don't even know what show it is. He is furious that now, under the Trump administration, his passport will identify him as a male.
Bureau of Consular Affairs has frozen passport applications requesting a gender marker change or renewals or new applications with a gender marker differing from an applicant's gender assigned at birth. So my initial reaction to this, because our president, is a lot of talk, was like, I'll believe it when I see it. And today, I saw it on my new passport, male. So, now to specify, my gender markers were first changed in my teens when I first got my driver's license, and then passports following. All have been female since then. Hasn't really been a problem.
Okay, there's the issue. That is a problem. It's a problem when official documents lie. It's a problem, even just at the level of national security. When official documents pertaining to national security cannot identify a person as a man or a woman, or cannot reliably identify a person as a man or woman. That is a problem. It's a problem when a woman has her rights violated and is denied even her own bathroom or even her own locker room. That's a problem. That what the left says with the gender ideology is, oh, it's not. Why is this a problem? This isn't a problem. You're making this a problem. No, it just is a problem. When you lie, when you infringe on the legitimate rights of people, when you take 890 medals and trophies away from hundreds of women across 29 different sports, and you take their scholarships, and that's a problem. It's not a problem for you. It's nice for you, you think, but it's a problem for these other people. So it's never been a problem. No, it is. It is. Living out of accord with reality is a problem. It creates many, many problems, myriad problems, uncountable number of problems. Now, you feel bad for this guy in particular. This is a freaky one, because this guy does kind of look like a woman. Almost all and trans-identifying people don't really look like the opposite sex, but this guy kind of does. And that's freaky. I mean, that's actually kind of a problem too, all right? Because you imagine some guy starts dating this guy, and he thinks he's dating a woman, and he thinks he's going to get married and have kids and whatever, and then he finds out one day, oh, no, that ain't going to happen, man. I got, I'm a man. That's a problem. That's actually wrong, even to that. It's just disordered and wrong, okay? And one feels for this guy, because apparently this guy got trans when he was like 2 years old. And if you look at his Wikipedia page, it says, he started expressing his femininity, well, it says she, but he started expressing his femininity when he was a toddler. What does that mean? That means that one or both of his parents were abusive. That's all that means. If his parents are leading him to believe that he's the opposite sex as a toddler, they're abusive, either through negligence and ignorance or through malice. But that act in itself is abusive to a child. And then, he says, and that's why I got my passport changed to the opposite sex when I was a teenager. Yeah, I have a great deal of pity for this guy. I mean, he has had a messed up life for sure. That does not give him the right to mess up other people's lives, to mess up our national security, to mess up our system of rights and privileges for men and women. It's a problem, whether he thinks so or not. DailyWire Plus members are getting news today that will be in the headlines everywhere tomorrow. Right now, members are inside live chats, debating the news in real time, sharing their opinions, and talking with other fans just like you. Thousands more are streaming exclusive series, culture-shaping documentaries, and hit movies you will not find anywhere else. Now is the time to join us as we build the future. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe to join now. My favorite comment yesterday is from Lynn Nichols, 2847, who says, it's actually refreshing to see humor back in the U.S. government. The jokes and laughter and smiling faces are such a welcome change from the sourpusses, angry, bitter faces of the past several years. I totally agree. I was on 2 news shows when I was in Washington a few days ago. I was on PBS NewsHour, great privilege to be invited on there, that don't necessarily always invite conservatives on, so I was very grateful to be on. And I was on Washington Journal on C-SPAN, which I have been on a number of times, though this was the first time in person. And I was asked about Trump. Is he an authoritarian? One question in particular pertained to him quoting Napoleon. Can you believe this? Isn't this terrifying? Trump is quoting Napoleon. Trump is saying things like, long live the king or whatever. And I think, oh man, it's okay to laugh a little bit, man. Trump is an entertainer. He was one of the biggest entertainers in the country, well, for decades, but he was the number 1 rated on network television for like 15 years. The guy can tell a joke, whatever you want to say about him. Ronald Reagan would begin his meetings and many of his speeches with jokes. It's okay. The angels can fly because they can take themselves lightly, says G.K. Chesterton. It's all right. Now, speaking of Trump calling himself a king, Madonna, the singer Madonna, she's in the news, and she's furious at Trump. She tweets out, I thought this country was built by Europeans, escaping living under the rule of a king to establish a new world governed by the people. Currently, we have a president who calls himself our king. If this is a joke, I'm not laughing. And Trump said, long live the king, because Trump tweeted out, he said, I'm ending congestion pricing in New York. I'm saving New York. Long live the king. She goes, I thought this country was built by Europeans. All right, put a pause right there. Whoa. Hey, lady, cool it with the racism. Because, she didn't think about this, and the country was built by Europeans. But to say that is to say that white people built the country, which you're not allowed to say, because you have to say this country was built first by Native Americans who were brutalized by the evil white man, and then the evil white man brought over the black man, and he built the country, and the only person who didn't build the country at all is the white man. But actually, Madonna just came out. She goes, I thought this country was built by white people. Like, yo, lady, hey, cool it, David Duke, all right? I thought this was a multicultural democracy. So anyway, that was a slip of hers. She didn't mean to say that, but she did. She says, they were escaping living under the rule of a king, and now our president calls himself the king. If this is a joke, I'm not laughing. So I Googled. I said, hold on a second here. Let me just go to Madonna's Wikipedia page. So I go, this is the first 2 sentences on Madonna's Wikipedia page. Madonna Louise Ciccone is an American singer, songwriter, record producer, and actress, commonly known as the Queen of Pop. She has been recognized for her continual reinvention of versatility in music production, songwriting, and visual presentation. Did you catch that? Hold on! I thought this was a country founded by Europeans escaping the intolerable yoke placed on them by a tyrant monarch. And this woman calls herself the Queen of Pop. I won't stand for it. Or is it just a kind of a tongue-in-cheek little title? I think it might be that. The biggest part of, she looks kind of silly here. Elvis Presley, he didn't realize this country was built by Europeans seeking to escape the king. No, it's all right. And Trump, when he makes a little jerk, he says, look, I just fixed a traffic problem in New York from the federal government. I have saved New York City. I am the king. I am the man. It's like him getting up and singing that song from 10 years ago. You could tell everybody, I'm the man, I'm the man. That's basically what he's saying. All that different. But the notable thing that she said here that very few people are picking up on, I thought this country was built by Europeans. Wow. Wokeness, political correctness, racial identity politics is so dead that we're even now permitted to admit that places like New Amsterdam and New England were established by Europeans. That's amazing. Speaking of the Europeans, President Trump was just asked about the German elections, which I'm not even going to really cover all that much. It's not that interesting. The short version of the German elections is that the AfD party, which is called far right, even though it's not far right, it's led by a lesbian libertarian who thinks that Hitler was a Marxist. So it's like a regular kind of libertarian sort of right-wing party in America. But they call it far right. There's a firewall against it. No one works with them. They managed to double their support, the AfD. which is impressive. Doesn't get him across the finish line. The regular old conservatives who are kind of libs won. You know, it's not that much to say. But in the run-up to the election, the president was asked what he thought about the German elections, and he gave what I thought was a perfect answer.
Germany has elections on Sunday. What are your thoughts? What do you expect to happen in the elections on Sunday?
Who has elections?
Germany.
Oh, Germany. I wish them luck. We got our own problems. Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Press.
You just saw.
We got our own problems. Good luck, guys. I love this. This attitude is strong from the standpoint of America first and not getting entangled in alliances all over the world. But it's actually a strong attitude even from the standpoint of geopolitics. Because what Trump is saying here is, hey, we're going to lead. I'm not watching the German elections to see if I'm going to get away with being able to do some of the things I want to do. Trump is quite involved in different parts of the world. He was just able, it seems like he was able to cut this mineral deal in Ukraine. He was the most successful foreign policy president, probably of my lifetime. George H.W. Bush was also very successful, but Trump's up there. Trump maybe was a better foreign policy president even. And Trump comes out and he says, what, the German elections? Whatever. Who cares? We're going to be doing what we're doing. We are going to lead. And because Trump is not an isolationist or whatever the libs want to call him, manifestly not. He wants to acquire Greenland and Canada. He wants to build a casino in Gaza. He wants to get mineral rights in Ukraine. He is not an isolationist, not far from it. Trump is a realist when it comes to the fact that America is the global empire. And as such, he says, yeah, look, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. Europeans better get on board. You don't ask me about the German elections. You ought to ask the Germans about the American elections. That's what's going to be important. Now, speaking of foreign relations with America, I have news. I'm just going to tease it. I'm just going to tease. You know me, I'm a tease, and I'm running out of time. But this is bad news. You know John Oliver? He's the liberal British guy who started out on the Daily Show, and then he got his own show. And he does, you can't even say that he makes jokes. He just reads a headline from American political news and then just is like, what the F? You know, are you effing kidding or whatever? And that's the substitute for a joke. But anyway, he's super annoying and doesn't offer any insight on American politics. And he's vowing to stay in America, despite President Trump, which actually, that fact tells you something about all of the hand-wringing over President Trump. We'll get to that tomorrow, but I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. John Oliver is staying in America. Now, very exciting membrum segmentum today. I'm going to be doing a little crossover with my friend, Mr. Ben Shapiro, to talk about a big news story that we actually didn't have time to get to today, which is the Pope's health. There are news reports out that Pope Francis is on his deathbed potentially, and lots of jockeying for position over who the next Pope will be, what it all means, how to think about it. The rest of the show continues now. You don't want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.